Voice over IP information. As we all know, the future of real-time voice communication is evolving from the traditional TDM circuit switch infrastructure. Voice over IP is simply the transmission of voice traffic over IP-based networks. The Internet Protocol was originally designed for data networking. The success of IP is becoming a world standard for data networking has led to its adaptation to voice networking, which allows you to make voice calls using broadband internet connection instead of the regular analog line. An overview of Voice over IP network will be presented by Tony and Patrick. They will go through a series of Q&A. What is Voice over IP and how does Voice over IP works?
Hey, Pat.
Hey, Tony, what's up?
Listen, I got a problem. I was asked to check our phone bills. We're being charged too much, and we just got to try to find some ways to cut costs without getting rid of phones. We're running cables here, we're running cables there. There's got to be an easier way to save money on our phone bills.
Did you know we could use our existing data network to run our voice cabling as well?
We can. How can we do that? I don't understand that.
Well, have you heard something called VoIP?
VoIP? Is that the new Ford that gets 45 miles per gallon?
Not exactly. It's in the industry. It's called Voice over IP.
Oh, okay. I think I heard of that. Go ahead. What is that again?
Well, IP, as you know, is the protocol that we use to send data over our networks, our data networks, our voice, our mail, our surfing the web, that kind of thing. Using Voice over IP, we can take voice and encapsulate it and send it over our network. So therefore, we're using the same network that we use every day for all our other things, and now we can use it for voice.
And we can save money?
Yes. Instead of running both data and voice cabling, we'll be running one network, as well as being able to use the same hardware that we're using to use our data for.
But there's got to be drawbacks. There's got to be echo. I just can't see how you can be on the internet and also on the phone at the same time.
You know, as with many things, there are always drawbacks to what we're doing. But in the long term, the benefits will outweigh the problems that will be caused by switching over. Would you like to show me?
Yeah, show me how this is done.
All right, let me show you. Since the invention of the telephone by Alexander Graham Bell, telephone service has been delivered over copper pairing from a central office. These central offices were connected to each other so that the calls from one central office can reach other central office, creating what we call a PSTN, or public switch telephone network. The interchange of COs enabled calls to be placed throughout the world. This type of service has brought the world closer together. The only problem, the cost of placing a call, because different companies who own different central offices would charge the other companies to complete calls, and the fact that copper pairing would have to be run from the central office to the location of the dial tone, often thousands of feet. Large organizations, such as companies and educational institutions, realized that most of the calls they placed were within their own organization. These organizations will be charged for each call they placed to each company phone, and high bills would entail. With that, these organizations decided to own a smaller dedicated switch, or PBX, called Private Branch Exchange, for themselves. Since they owned and operated, the costs were for time and material, and not so much as phone individual calls. They still needed to interact with the phone company, but not to the extent they had before, drastically reducing their costs. With the creation of the network and later the internet, data is being sent around the world at the speed of light. The data has been traditionally documents and files that are sent over from PC to PC. As time goes on, engineers have seen the potential of this data transferred and created VoIP, or Voice over IP. Through VoIP, voice calls are converted to packet form and sent from VoIP phone to VoIP phone, or VoIP phone to analog phone, and the whole thing that makes this work is called SIP, or Session Initiation Protocol. That's Session Initiation Protocol. In SIP, a phone making a call will contact a proxy server to complete the call. It'll send the information to the proxy server what the phone number it wants to reach. If the SIP proxy server determines that the phone is within the network, the proxy server will contact another phone in its network and hand over the IP of the original phone that is placing the call. From that point, the remote call will send information back to the first call, and the proxy server will no longer be a party to that call. If the SIP proxy determines that the call is not within its own system, it will determine through routing where to send the call. To call a traditional phone system, the signal needs to go back to a PBX or through the PSTN, through a conversion through a VoIP gateway. Again, once the call is completed, the proxy server will no longer be a part of the call process. If the call coming from into a phone network does not answer the call, the proxy server, instead of continuing to ring the phone, will then send the call to the SIP phone mail server and again hand it off and not be part of the call.